I think we're gonna finally see, for all the hoopla and all of the hype going into the off season with Deion Sanders in Colorado, it does not mask the fact that they don't have any players on that roster.
Watch and see whether he can win the game or not, which very few people think he can. I think the spotlight that will be on him Saturday morning will not carry well to the next week. Your rundown for SportsCenter, you don't go, Colorado, they're 0-3. That's a good story. Why don't we lead with that today? He's going to be very angry, very cantankerous, and really will do some more damage than good.
I think Colorado's going to be 3-9. No. Maybe 4-8, maybe.
All the documentaries and the whatever else Deion is doing, it's great. But who wants to watch a losing team?
I ordered these overalls probably a couple weeks ago, and they were sitting up under my desk. And I said, today is the perfect day to wear it. Because when you see a man in overalls, the first thing you think is word. When you see a man with a pickup truck, the first thing you think is word. First thing I bought my kids, Shiloh, Shador, their first car was pickup trucks, right? Because I wanted them to understand there's something about a pickup truck and something about work that just makes you stand out. It makes you a little different. My stepfather never promised me to do this, and never promised me he was going to do that. But one thing that he did was work. He was the foreman at this place called Wicks Lumber, and he took pride in that. So every time I got up in the morning and seen him getting ready, he was putting on that darn uniform. And that uniform I associated with work. So when he didn't put on that uniform, he wasn't going to work. But whenever he put on that uniform, it was time to work, and he took it serious.
Colorado. Got to ask you this before we get to some of these games this weekend. You were quoted as, basically, and I'm paraphrasing here, saying Colorado sucks.
What would the expectation level be, or what should it be? Instead of losing on an average margin of 34 points, you may lose, but you lose by 21. That's realistic expectation. But I feel like all of this hype is being set up for failure in year one, because they're setting an unattainable expectation level in a conference that's got the best quarterback play in America. See, for all the hoopla and all of the hype. But I feel like all of this hype.
In my lifetime, there's been nothing that's left me feeling more disappointed more often than this four-letter word. Hype, the excitement, the concentrated groupthink that triggers a dopamine release over something that hasn't happened. And usually, once that thing actually does happen, it's a crazy letdown, and you go scrambling for the next thing. Mayweather Pacquiao, the NFL preseason, and every single Call of Duty since Black Ops 2. Overhyped letdown, overhyped letdown. We've probably all been through this cycle more times than we can count. But finally, for once, something lived up to the hype. Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, took over Colorado, and now Colorado might be taking over college football. Now, I imagine a lot of y'all probably know the backstory, but for those who don't, man, I'll sum it up as quickly as I can. So Deion Sanders was born in 1967. I'm just messing with y'all, bro. We're not going back that damn far. But in 1989, 22 years later, he was the 5th overall pick in the NFL draft. He showed up like this and he left like this, with 2 of these, 8 of these, and also 8 of these. Somewhere in the middle of that, he also did this, all while dancing, celebrating, and throwing water on this dude. He was one of those players that you loved or you hated. With a character this colorful, there's not a lot of room for gray. But as a player, dude always backed up the hype. He'd set unrealistic expectations and then somehow surpass them. When he was done with ball, everybody knew he had a career in entertainment, if he wanted to go that route. He dabbled in some television, but as entertaining as he is, he seems to prefer entertaining while doing something tangible, which to me speaks a lot to his character as a man. And I know dude ain't perfect, but a television career, while it does offer its challenges, for a dude like Deion would have been way easier. A lot less stressful, he'd have still made a lot of money, but he chose to go a route where failure is a lot more likely. But he's absolutely fearless, and that's something I admire about him. He started out coaching high school back in 2012, and by 2017, he was coaching 2 of his sons, Shiloh Sanders and Shadir Sanders, each of which have followed him to both of his college coaching stops. So in 2020, he goes to J-State or Jackson State University D1AA SWAC conference. He shows up there like he showed up for the draft, creating a whole bunch of hype, and then living up to it. While at Jackson State, a historically black college, dude was winning recruiting battles versus Power 5 schools. That does not happen. He landed the #1 overall recruit in the nation at an HBCU. Bro, I went to Southern University, and if you'd have told me this future back when I was at college, I would have laughed in your face. All right, man, real quick here before we jump in, a quick word from today's sponsor, DraftKings. So the NFL season is officially here, and I don't know about you, but I'm gonna be screaming at the TV every Sunday, mostly from my little recliner rocking my favorite team jersey. So I partnered up with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official partner of the National Football League, to bring all new customers a very exciting way to join in on the action right now. So new customers, download the DraftKings app, use my promo code FlemLo, bet just $5, and boom, right at that very moment, $200 in bonus bets hits your account instantly. So don't wait no longer. Get some skin in the game and download the DraftKings app right now. That's right, new customers who bet just $5 on any wager will receive $200 in bonus bets instantly. Now, one way you could use your $200 in bonus bets could be on the DraftKings same game parlays. Combine multiple bets together all from the same game and give yourself a chance for an even bigger payout. Now, if sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. DraftKings Daily Fantasy still gives you a shot at cash prizes. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. And to the new customers, use my promo code FlemLo. Bet just $5 on any wager and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code FlemLo, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Shout out to DraftKings once again for sponsoring the video. Without further ado, it's time to jump back in. Bro, I went to Southern University, and if you'd have told me this future back when I was at college, I would have laughed in your face. But he does it, and in 2021 wins the SWAC title, and then the very next year moves on to Colorado. Now, if you're like me, an NCAA video game veteran, you immediately recognize that this is a coaching carousel dynasty. You take over a school in one of the smallest conferences, and in your first or second year, you win the conference title. Then you move to one of the struggling schools in a larger conference. The coaching prestige is going up because you just won the conference title, and your conference prestige is going up because you just moved to a bigger conference. You already proved that you can land big recruits, and this move just opens up your recruiting even more. A couple of months ago, when I looked at their schedule, I could not help but kind of chuckle to myself because he used one of the strategies that I'd use all the time in the video game back when I was playing the game faithfully. When you're starting out unranked, you gotta find a team to snipe. You find a school that's ranked between 15 and 25, and you know they're good, but they're vulnerable and extremely beatable. Probably slightly overrated based on what they did last year. Then you open up the season against them on the road. They think they got an easy win. You sneak up on them and overwhelm them. Now you got a top 25 win right out of the gate, which of course will help your ranking out dramatically down the line. So just for some quick proof that I'm not talking out of my ass, I found an old video of me using this same method. I didn't comb through anything. This was the first vid I clicked. And the most hilarious part was that I used the same school. I literally picked TCU as the school I chose to snipe. And by the time we played, they was ranked 17. The same exact number they was ranked when Colorado played them this past Saturday and pulled off the upset. I also pulled off the upset. I beat them in a high scoring, very close and very competitive game. Came down to the wire just like the real game. And bro, the score is so similar, it's really kind of wild. Again, this is me playing this 6 years ago. So when I saw the schedule, I immediately recognized this move. Thing is, this is real life, bro. This ain't a video game. But it's crazy to see that it worked out the same way. Think about this. As a player, Deion did things on the field that were completely unrealistic. He had a video game career. Now he's in the coaching world and he's still making moves that you've only ever seen in a digital simulation. Coach Prime went to Colorado the same way he went to the NFL, the same way he went to Jackson State. Dude announces his presence. And just like those stops, dude was met with resistance. But his doubters seem to make the same mistake every time. You ever hear the term in sports, play your game? Don't let the other team dictate how the game is being played. And Deion's biggest doubters never followed that rule. They always criticize loudly and make bombastic statements, probably thinking to themselves, that's what Prime does. But it seems a lot of times they haven't done the work in the background to make bold claims that can actually stand up to scrutiny.
You were quoted as, and I'm paraphrasing here, saying Colorado sucks.
Tom Luginbill, an ESPN analyst, said prior to the game that Colorado might have the worst roster in all of college football. A statement like that, you can imagine, gets a lot of attention. Do you know how many teams they have in college football? Do you know how many of those teams are really, really bad? I came across a clip of Joel Klatt refuting that statement with facts. So here's Luginbill's statement and then Joel Klatt's response.
I think we're gonna finally see from for all of the hoopla and all of the hype going into the offseason with Deion Sanders in Colorado, it does not mask the fact that they don't have any players on that roster. So you thought UMass was the worst roster in college football? It may be Colorado's. Now, I say that. Do they have a quarterback? Yes. Do they have 2 starting corners that could be NFL guys and one of them plays both ways? Yes. They are so devoid of talent up front on both sides of the ball. I don't know how they're going to keep their quarterback upright.
And some discussion about the Louis that Deion took with him to Boulder, Colorado. How good is his roster?
Fellas, what are you guys doing? What are you doing? You're just like trying to stir the pot, trying to take your show viral.
Well, it's Luganville. It's
more
Luganville than us.
We didn't do anything.
Yeah, blame Luganville.
Hey, you can double down and help us go more viral,
That's
though.
right.
Is it the worst roster in college
double
football?
down. Listen,
Simple question.
I've thought about this.
Worst roster in college football.
That was objectively false. He knows better than that. He is better than that. That was a ridiculous statement that he made on your show. You can back it up with data, or you can go to practice. Apparently he did neither, which is maddening. Tom's better than that. And I hope he hears this, because that's ridiculous what he said. Just by the data itself, Colorado brought in 51 transfers, which is an astronomical amount. Astronomical. And largely based on the volume of transfers, they finished number 1 in the transfer portal based on 24/7. Now, even if you go and you parse that out in terms of kind of like per player rating, they finished in the top 38 in the transfer portal alone. In the incoming freshman class recruiting rankings, they finished 29th. That's another 21. So now you're talking about 72 players on a roster where it's in the top 30 in the country from what everyone brought in last year. That is objective information. So what he said was ridiculous. He should retract it. And he was just saying it for likes, apparently. Everyone has a Prime effect, all right? You either love Prime or you hate Prime. But what was said on your show was garbage.
And that's how we got
then he should have answered that question and not compared him to UMass and the roster. It might be the worst roster in college football. It's the dumbest thing he's ever said. And he's better than that.
The information Clad gave is info anyone could look up, especially a actual college football analyst. That info might not make you say this is a national championship team, but it definitely wouldn't make you say this is the worst roster in college football.
Watch and see whether he can win the game or not, which very few people think he can. I think the spotlight that will be on him Saturday morning will not carry well to the next week.
So in the past, when I've heard people say they prefer college football over the NFL, every time without fail, the reasoning always centers around the emotion of the game, the pageantry, or how hard the kids all seem to play, the tailgating, or the crazy next level passion from the fans. So cool, college football is a very emotional sport, and I think a lot of these cats who cover it have assimilated to that. The audience is looking for emotion, and these guys are a part of that audience, so a lot of times they seem to lead with emotion over facts. Not necessarily an indictment, but just an observation. I mean, the NFL is emotional too. Every sport is, but college football seems to be a little bit higher in that category. But I wonder, was there any precedence to what Deion is doing? Maybe they've seen this fail before, and that's why they're responding so negatively. According to The Athletic, there was a similar plan put together, and it wasn't that long ago. We're talking the somewhat recent past. It's not an apples to apples comparison, so don't expect this to line up perfectly, but it is a somewhat similar concept and a somewhat similar approach. So back in 2012 and 2013, Charlie Weis, who was coaching Kansas at the time, signed 26 JUCO players. That means more than 50% of all the players that he signed were junior college transfers who'd already had some development. It was looked at the time like a get-rich-quick scheme, and trying to fast-track success was seen as a big risk. Some people were against it, though not nearly as loudly as these guys, but those who said that it wouldn't work ended up being super right. The first year, Charlie Weis put up a season that can only be compared to last year's Colorado team, bro. Kansas went 1-11. The scary part about that Kansas experiment, if you're a Colorado fan, is that just like Colorado, Kansas won their first game. But it's not exactly the same. See, Kansas didn't play against a ranked team who was in the national championship just the year before. Nah, Kansas actually beat up on South Dakota State, an FCS school, and they honestly didn't even beat them that bad. But they got that one win against a non-FBS school, and didn't win another game for the rest of the season. Meanwhile, Colorado was a 20-point underdog and goes toe-to-toe and beats a top 25 team. But maybe watching that Kansas team, 10 years ago, added an extra level of skepticism to these college football analysts. And when you've seen a lot and experienced a lot, you start to become resistant to anything connected to hype. If you've seen 10 straight Madden drops and none of them have delivered on whatever it is that you have been looking for in the game, over time you become more and more resistant to the hype, and your lack of belief gets louder and louder over time. But Deion Sanders has once again proven that unlike so many people and so many events, when he creates hype, no matter how big the hype gets, you can count on a level of substance to back all of that up. And this consistency from that standpoint has given college football that shot in the arm that they desperately needed. I was telling my boy, bro, before the game started, I watched a little 3-minute interview clip and it felt like a movie. And he'll get resistance now, but college football is chock full of these larger than life coaches that are scattered across leagues. You got the Sabans, the Sweeneys, both of which have won championships, but you got Jim Harbaugh too, and Michigan ain't even been to a natty. I'm a casual college fan, so I'm sure there's a bunch more, but I see these dudes making big, bold claims all of the time, carrying themselves with a swagger and being treated like a king. So Coach Prime in college football just couldn't make more sense. And a lot of dudes who've been on autopilot gonna have to take that thing off cruise control. And something like that is just naturally gonna upset a lot of people. But for the fans, it's great. It's a new level of competition. Someone who's being creative and using the tools that's available in the sport and approaching it in a way that people thought couldn't work. And it's very, very early, but so far so good. I've never seen in the social media era so many NFL players and celebs tweeting about a regular season college game, including an unranked school against a team who lost most of the recognizable players to the NFL draft. For me personally, I haven't felt this excited for college football since that USC Texas Rose Bowl back in the day. Over the past several years, I've been trying desperately to get more into college football. I've made videos about it. I stated that NIL deals and the transfer portal have created a wild card to open up college football, but I didn't count on Prime using both of those tools so heavily to turn a one-win team into must-see TV. But bro, all the sweeping changes that are taking place in college ball have created an environment where anything is possible. And that makes college football so much more compelling, so much more fun to watch, so much more interesting, so much more entertaining, so much more unpredictable. The NCAA is accidentally on to something. After Colorado went 1-11 last year and lost by an average of 29 points, Deion decided to bring in a new roster of recruits and transfers and what he calls the 40-40-20 model. 40% graduate transfers, 40% transfers, and only 20% of high school recruits. This made a lot of people angry because if you do the quick math, there's really no space for the dudes already on the team. That contributed to a lot of the hate that Coach Prime got, and I get it to some extent, but it can't work both ways. It was weird that people criticized him for overturning the whole roster, but still held the 1-11 record from last year against them. It's like, bro, it's literally a brand new team. It's like a brand new program. They got brand new coaching, brand new players, brand new uniform. All that stuff from last year is now completely irrelevant. The 40-40-20 model rides heavy on one thing that I don't know if some of the detractors were really paying attention to. I don't know if he actually hit this percentage, but the goal was to get 40% of graduate transfers. And graduate transfers have obviously graduated. They've matured and they're looking for that one last shot. Them dudes coming in about business. Approximately 40% of their roster are upperclassmen. Prior to the game, I probably watched like 4 or 5 breakdowns, and Joel Klatt might have been the only person to mention that. And I think that's real important because football ain't basketball. It takes more than a couple of stars to build a team that can compete. That said, I gotta quickly mention Colorado's 2 biggest stars, and that's Travis Hunter and of course Shedeur Sanders. Travis Hunter played the whole game on both sides of the ball, and he wasn't just out there, he was an impact player on both sides. He had over 100 yards receiving. It could have easily been more, but he ended up dropping a pair of nearly spectacular touchdowns. One thing I noticed early when he didn't finish some tough catches was that he was diving and he kept falling on top of the ball. So he wasn't surviving the ground, the ball kept getting knocked loose. But later in the game, I noticed he made a slight adjustment. he started rolling over mid-air so he'd instead fall on his back. And with that small adjustment, he took over the game. My favorite series of plays from dude came on the defensive side, even though he essentially had the game-winning catch on 3rd and super long. But in the 3rd quarter, this dude who played I don't know how many snaps showed me that he's more than just one of these flashy type of players. TCU is pushed back on their own 1-yard line, and the running back busts a 74-yard run that takes his team from their own 1-yard line all the way down to the other team's red zone. You know who makes the tackle and saves that touchdown? The dude who played more snaps than anybody else in the game. He hustles from the opposite side of the field and makes this tackle. Then a few plays later, he jumps this pick. I don't think Colorado even scored on that possession, and TCU came back and scored on the next possession. But I thought twice on that drive he takes points off the board, and he does it once with a hustle play and once with a superstar play. In this game, Shadir Sanders looked like a top 3 pick. His ability to play on time really surprised me because I haven't heard much about him, at least not in that light. So I assumed that he was just a run-of-the-mill college quarterback. And again, one game, but bro, he was impressive. He had so many passes that was dropped by his receivers, including deep shots, touchdowns, and everything in between. And he still finished the game 38 of 47 for 500 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no picks. He's not doing that in a blowout where they just running up the score. He did that in a game where they was 20-point underdogs. A game that constantly changed leads late in the 4th quarter, clutch throw after clutch throw, bro. The dude was impressive. It's early, super early. But what Colorado just did, what they are, what they represent, could change college football forever. I know Deion said something like culture doesn't matter. I think it does matter, and I also think this team has a great culture. People have started to look at culture like it's gotta be one thing. I probably come from a different culture than you. Does that mean one's better than the other? The way I dress, the way I talk, the music I listen to might be completely different from the culture you come from. Most teams in college football are chasing the same culture, the same cookie cutter stuff they've been pushing for years. By the way, a lot of that stuff I really agree with. I'm big on accountability. I'm big on doing your job. But for a team, bro, a culture is set by the coach, especially in college, but in the NFL too. And Colorado's filled this roster with players who are comfortable, or maybe even prefer, announcing that they coming before they show up. Some coaches might say keep your head down, be quiet, don't make enemies. And ain't nothing wrong with that. That's a smart way to approach it. But some people, especially in football, are wired a completely different way, and trying to fit into those meek, mild, keep your head down cultures is not the type of culture that's gonna bring the best out of everybody. Deion's creating a place where it's okay to be brash. It's okay to talk a little trash as long as you can back it up. Like I've stated throughout this video, that's what Prime has always done, and he expects nothing less from every player on his roster. If you're gonna talk louder, you gotta go harder. And while it might be a different culture than what college football is used to, a lot of people are automatically assuming that it'll fail. It almost kind of feels like a spiritual successor to what Miami, the U, was doing back in the 90s. Minus the craziness, but you know, just the attitude. I'm just talking the bravado, the swag that they brought. And Colorado's not the only exciting thing happening in college. There's compelling stories all over, but this might be the biggest one. I got friends who literally don't give a damn about college football, that sat down Saturday and watched every single snap, the whole damn time, on the edge of their seats, living and dying with every play, and it's so damn refreshing. But will it be refreshing like the first sip of a cold drink, or will it actually stay good until the very last sip? Will time prove that these guys all had a point, or will their taste continue to age like milk in a power outage? Bro, either way it goes, the whole country will be watching. And when's the last time college football could say that?